However, I'm excited to introduce our next sponsor, Matt from Matt's Automotive, to introduce our final speaker before the break. Heck yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Matt Lockowitzer. I'm the owner of Matt's Automotive Service Center. We have 10 locations throughout Minnesota and North Dakota. We employ over 100 team members. And it's my honor to introduce Shannon Full. Shannon is a proven passionate thought leader in developing and implementing strategy, building complex collaborations, executing innovative approaches, developing and leveraging relationships with partners, and developing impactful teams. Shannon has had the pleasure of leading chambers of commerce and economic development organizations for the past 20 years. She has spent her professional career facilitating complex situations, leveraging relationships and resources towards a common goal, influencing decision makers, effectively creating and delivering communications to diverse stakeholders, assessing current landscape, developing strategies for success, and effectively implementing change. Please welcome Shannon Full.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How are ya? Okay, so really excited to be with you here today. Let's see, where do I not have to stand? Excited to be with you here today. And this is my first Leadership Unfiltered. I got the email from Kurt. I was all excited, had my presentation all ready to go. And I emailed Kurt and said, hey, I think I'm all ready. Do you want me to send you the presentation ahead of time? And this was on Sunday night. I got the email back from him. We'd prefer if you didn't use the presentation because you connect more with the audience that way. So here we go. We're just gonna wing this and see how it goes. So the title of my presentation today is Intentional Grit. And there's a little bit of reason behind that name. When I think about the leadership characteristics and the things that we want to see in a leader, I immediately I'm drawn to the word grit. I think it takes a ton of stamina, resilience to be a good leader, and grit seems to describe that. But the challenge with it is it doesn't come naturally, or at least not to most of us, right? Or it comes naturally to have grit when it's easy, and when it's not so easy, that gets you a little bit more of a challenge. And so the intentionality behind this, and the part that I wanted to talk about is sharing a few stories with you, but also in the world of acronyms, putting a few acronyms behind grit. So we're going to talk about grace, resiliency, influence, and trust. Those are the things that I believe make up key characteristics for what has guided me in my career. So a little bit about me. I love this. This was very serendipitous. About a month ago, I played in a golf outing with Anthony. And Anthony and I were paired up on the same team. First time we had met, we were talking about where we grew up. And lo and behold, he said he grew up in a small town of Webster, Wisconsin, about way smaller than my town. No, my town is 1,100 people, 20 miles away from Webster. And so we found that we also have lots of things in common, like our love for the Packers. Right? Everyone? No. Okay. Okay. So continuing, moving on. So I spent my life, my career has been in the Chamber of Commerce world, in community development, and working together with leaders like all of you to make our community better. And so the first part I will talk about around grace is all around, this is, I believe, one of the toughest characteristics you have as a leader. The ability to give yourself grace. For me, it's difficult because I could have started, I actually was going to start with guilt instead of grace. But I thought that's kind of a downer to start a whole presentation on guilt. But a lot of times, we have to give ourselves grace because there is a lot of guilt that comes with being a leader. There's guilt that comes with, am I balancing between my quality of life, meaning my life at home and my life at work? Do I have a good balance? I still believe that doesn't even exist, right? I think that it's all about integration now. It's not about balance. At least for me, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I'm guessing most of you, even if you say you go to work from 9 to 5, I'm gonna guess that that's probably not the case when you actually look at it at the end of the day. So giving yourself some grace to not feel guilty about when you're doing things that you love, like I love the job that I do. So to not have guilt around the fact that I'm not at home with my 8-year-old and 11-year-old, or when I am at home, or I do take my PTO, which I push my staff to do because now we live in a world that means all of us should show up all the time, and there's no such thing as PTO. We also know that that's not great for us and where we're going in this world. And so the grace component to me is also something that I think your team and the people around you, when you truly give grace to others and grace to yourself, it makes you a more authentic leader. So when we think about the second piece of the acronym, and the R in resilience, resilience is another one for me. That's a very difficult thing as a leader. I am a people pleaser by nature. I don't like when I have somebody that doesn't like me, doesn't want to be around me, it really, I have an issue with it, right? When I think about being a resilient leader, some of that is having enough thick skin, but it's also being a leader to help through the challenging times of adversity. So let me share a little story with you. When so I've led chambers all over the place. When I got recruited to Cedar Rapids, Iowa in 2008, 1 month, actually, 31 days after their disastrous flood. All of us up here are well aware of what flooding does, right? Down there in Cedar Rapids, it was like nothing I could have imagined. $6.2 billion worth of damage. I mean, this was massive. 1,200 homes, 5,400 homes and 1,200 businesses were destroyed. The entire city was underwater. And when I got there, it truly looked like a war zone. Everything was boarded up. We were still, 30 days after, we were still looking for the National Guard to be able to let you back into your businesses or let you back into your homes that were destroyed. And what happened around that was the businesses had nowhere to turn. I remember in my office, I would have lines of people because we stood up a microloan to help businesses get back on their feet. And when doing so, there would be a line of business leaders. I remember Sam from Sammy's Pizza. Sam came to me with literally a pizza box of flooded receipts. He set the wet, soggy box onto my desk and said, "This is all I have left of my business. I don't know what to do. I took out a second mortgage on my home, and I've maxed out every credit card, and I don't know if there's another option for me in the future." So this was the point that I realized that the resilient nature of people and the people around you makes you a tremendously strong leader. I will say, we were able to help Sam get his business back on track, but it was not in the location that they had been for 4 generations because that was now in the flood zone and they had to demolish it. So we did have to move him to a different area, but he, his family, and his business are continuing to thrive. When I think about the I in grit, I think about influence. Influence is our ability to impact others. Influence is our ability to motivate a team and to keep that team around you. We do, in my job is about influence almost 24/7. We lobby at the local, state, and national level to lobbyists or to leaders, legislative leaders on bills to try to impact and influence the result of their decisions on your business and on our community. But we also influence in our actions of how we carry ourselves, what we do as a partner within the community. I look around and it was really great to see so many familiar faces and so many partners. I see John sitting right down here. The Chamber and the Economic Development Corporation are tremendous partners, but that influence is because we've been able to form partnerships and the ability to leverage those to the greatest extent. And so when we talk a little bit about impact and influence, one of the pieces I will tell you about is that the same piece of information in Cedar Rapids. When businesses were coming to me and asking, Shannon, what can you do to help me? What I realized was, this is what happens in a disaster. Think about when you turn on the news and you see the next hurricane that has hit, the next fire that has hit. The first people that arrive are the storm chasers, and then it's FEMA. And FEMA tells you on the news to everybody, right? We're gonna make you whole, we're gonna get you back in your home, we're gonna make it back, we're gonna work together to get you the aid that you need. The reality of it is, that is a lie. It is 100% not accurate. So we had to lobby an entire 2.5 years to lobby for the rebuilding of our businesses in the same proportion of the homes, in the same proportion that the mix was to start with. Because what happens was, FEMA wants to put everyone back in their homes, and they don't really do any business funding. Well, how are you going to do that if you don't have a place for people to go to work, for them to get their medical benefits, for them to... So we had to rally an entire team to then lobby at the federal level and at the state level to give us funds to match our loans to put businesses, give them the necessary resources to put them back in business. So the final piece I'll tell you about the T, all about trust. I told you earlier I was a people pleaser, and so trust is one of my core values. One is integrity and trust go hand in hand. And that trust component of it, for me, I believe is the single most impactful trait as a leader. With it, you are unstoppable. Without it, you are not a leader. Because without building the trust that's needed by your team, by those around you, it's very difficult to get anything done on your own. And so I work really hard at that, but I will also tell you that oftentimes that trust is challenged. And as a good leader, it also means being able to say, I have enough self-awareness to know when I have dropped the ball, when I have lost your trust, and when and what I can do to make that back. And the biggest part of being a good leader is having that courageous will to admit the fact that I didn't show up the way that I wanted to show up. That in order to gain your trust, I realize that I have broken that trust, and I realize that I want to gain it back, but I also realize that's going to take some time to do that. So I see that my clock is down to 0, but I'll leave you with this. As you go through your individual lives, your day-to-day, whether it be with your family or whether that be with you in a work setting, I hope that you think about intentional grit. That ability to work through everything that is adverse to you, everything that's pushing you down, to have grace, resiliency, influence, and trust. Thank you.
So we have roughly 10 more minutes. We're gonna hold Shannon up here for a little Q&A before we jump into our break.
Yay!
Ooh, they give us pillows. Do we sit on the pillows or the pillows at back
I like them
support?
on my back, I think.
Yeah, okay, nice. Good arch. I gotta practice my posture if we're sitting in front of people. So the first question that I had for you is,
This makes me a little nervous. Emma, this is the first time Emma's ever sat here and questioned me, so I'm gonna be okay, yep, go ahead.
So something that I find really fascinating in leaders in our community is who you look to for resource. So who are individuals that you're seeking out for thought leadership? Maybe I always say what's content that you're digesting right now? So a book you're reading, maybe a podcast. I would love to know.
So a couple things for me. The nice thing about leading the chamber with 1,700 businesses is I am not short of great thought leaders that are very passionate about the work we do, that are passionate about my success as a leader. So I have tremendous leadership in my executive committee and my board. My current chair of the board is Peter Stenjum for First International Bank and Trust, and he's been a tremendous asset because he is one of those that he's a driver. So where I have a lot of energy, I'm very driven, but I also, as I said, as a people person, I get very, I may overthink things. Just ask my husband. He will tell you that I overthink too much. And so he's been fabulous. I will say that there are some other really strong, I look for some strong female leaders as well. I see one of them well, behind the pillar. Carrie Brimhall, President Brimhall, has been one that I have followed since I got here because she is very courageous in the way that she leads her college. I am so impressed and very pleased to be able to work alongside her. And then Tiffany Lawrence is another one from Sanford Health. I get a lot of inspiration from Tiffany in the way that she's leading the Healthcare Association. But also, I get a lot of inspiration spiritually. So I am a very spiritual person. You can probably see by my necklace. And I am on my way in November, actually, to an emotional health retreat with Rebecca Lyons down in Franklin, Tennessee. So whatever your religious affiliation may be, some way, somehow, it's important for you to invest in yourself as well. And so that investment in myself will be, my husband invests in himself with a 12-day elk hunt, leaving me with the kids for 12 days. I am gonna go with some great friends for a couple days to Nashville, first to Franklin for this emotional health retreat, and then 2 days in Nashville to undo all the things that I just learned about, right? No, so we'll see.
So I know that you had mentioned that you don't believe in work-life balance, which is, I mean, there's to be said, there's a lot to be done specifically in a role that's so public. When you're out in the community, you're on, and you have a community to take care of. Can you talk a bit more about what rest means for you and how you find rest, how you feel well-rested to show up for the community?
That's a really great question. We just had this exact conversation with my team because one of the things we're understanding with our team is that I get rest very differently and somewhat a little bit awkwardly than the rest of my team. My rest is surrounding myself with more people. Like, I literally am so drawn to people that if I am by myself at home, it drives me crazy. Like, I have to, my husband will say, didn't you just want to sit on the couch and relax for the afternoon? He's like, no, but you're already calling somebody saying, should you want to just come over? And I just can't watch TV by myself even. So that something might be wrong with me in that way. But so that's how I get rest. But my rest also comes from just being with my kids. They bring a whole new level of energy into my life and what we're doing. So, but rest is very different for people. And so the other thing I'm learning and continuing to learn is to recognize that often my high energy and constant go can be very draining on others and somewhat intimidating, where they're like, I want us to keep going. And they're like, yeah, I just need a break. Or even better, I just need you to recognize that what we just did is good. Let's celebrate that before we move on to the next event and pushing the next thing. So.
Heck yeah. Final question. If somebody was to approach you to talk about anything post our conversation, what is something that you would love to nerd out about with them?
What would I like to say one more time?
If somebody were to approach you post this conversation to talk about anything, what would you personally, I use the term nerd out about, but what are you really passionate about that you're just wanting to spark a conversation on right now?
I'm so passionate. So community-wise, it just depends. So I would say that's a very broad question. And the reason I'm stuck is because I love to talk about how can we make individuals and the community succeed and thrive even more. That I am all about. Let's brainstorm. I'm also super competitive. So I'm like, when I sit with 65 chamber leaders all across the country and they're talking about all the things that they're doing, I want to do every one of them, right? Like, okay, let's do this. I think we should do this, which is also a little bit of an issue. But I think I am so driven on helping individuals, companies, and the community grow, prosper, thrive to their greatest level. That's the part that I'm probably the most passionate about.
Heck yeah, awesome. Let's give Shannon a round of applause. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, sweet lady.
That was very painless.